Urban Cowboy was a 1980 romantic Western film that was directed by James Bridges. It starred John Travolta as Bud Davis and Debra Winger as Sissy, as it follows their love-hate relationship throughout the film. The film jumped on the bandwagon of the popularity of the late 1970s and early 1980s popularity of country music, and it also, in turn, drove that popularity. Much of the action revolves around the huge honky-tonk in Pasadena, Texas, called Gilley's. The whole thing started out from an Esquire magazine article that bore the same name. This article centered on the romance between two of Gilley's regulars, a guy named Dew Westbrook and a girl named Betty Helmer. Their real-life relationship and romance inspired the on-screen romance of John Travolta's character and Debra Winger's. The names were just changed to Bud and Sissy. Travolta's title role, playing this young man who moves to Houston from this podunk Texas town to get a job in the oil business. He lands work at his uncle's plant, but spends most of his nights at the real-life honky-tonk called Gilley's. And he does quite well with the ladies while he's there. At least one time, he takes home a pair of them at the same time. But then he spots Sissy. She's a tank-topped young girl played by Debra Winger, and it's basically love at first sight. Or maybe you should call it passions run amok. After Bud and Sissy get hitched, their wedding bliss doesn't last for very long at all. The two quickly come to blows, but their friction is over a mechanical bull. Gilley's ends up getting their own rodeo simulation machine. This bull you can ride. Bud hops on immediately to prove his manhood, where he gets into a pissing contest with his arch rival Wes, played by Scott Glenn. Sissy ends up expressing her interest in riding this mechanical bull, and in fact, she gets a free lesson from Wes behind Bud's back. Bud completely loses his cool over this, and he ditches his young bride for a much calmer, more meek gal of glamour. It's said that John Travolta had a mechanical bull installed in his real house 2 months before the production began, and that he became so good that he was allowed to dismiss the stunt double when they did those takes. He did them all himself. In the early scenes of the movie, John Travolta sports a beard. Travolta really wanted to keep this beard on throughout the film, but after he went on a lunch date at a very popular restaurant, he failed to attract even one autograph seeker. This kind of convinced him that he needed to shave it off. He did comment a few times that this is one of the most physical movies he ever did. He called it brutal and hard on his body. I'm assuming the main thing that he's talking about there is the mechanical bull riding. He also made the statement that half of the country would love to be a cowboy, while the other half would love to look like one. This role almost didn't go to him. There was some initial talk of having Dennis Quaid as the character of Bud. Now, the bad guy, Wes, played by Scott Glenn, states that back during this time, he had a bit of an attitude problem, and that he often refused to do auditions for roles. The producers wanted him to audition for the part, but he would have none of it. Now, it's not really explained how Scott orchestrated this exactly, but he arranged to be at Gilley's when the producers would be there, and he would be in character and in costume. Completely in front of the producers, he approached the biggest, roughest-looking guy at the bar and told him, "You're sitting in my seat. I need you to move immediately." Except he wasn't that nice about his phrasing of it. Luckily, according to Scott, the guy got up and left the bar stool. Scott was immediately hired on the spot as Wes Hightower. The studio executives were completely against casting Debra Winger in this lead part. The director had to threaten to quit the film unless she was cast. They eventually gave their blessing, and it's probably a good thing they did because she is perfect for it. The production shoot of the movie featured a completely closed set with a boatload of security precautions that were implemented to protect John Travolta from the media. He had mandated that he would have no publicity during the filming. This caused the film to garner a whole lot of negative publicity during their principal photography. The producer, Robert Evans, was terribly upset about it. He said that the press relations on this film stink, and there was nothing he could do about it. Travolta did go on to say that he had a blast doing this film, and it was one of the most enjoyable movies that he's ever made, particularly the parts that were filmed in Houston at Gilley's. He said that he got to know a lot of the local cowboys and their cowboy ways, and he would sometimes hang out with them after filming had wrapped. The movie is really a look at the lifestyle of a mechanized West and the need for fantasy by those in this contemporary society who work daily in dangerous jobs. In the saloon that they go to night after work, these men create another reality for themselves. It's almost a small town where they live the cowboy myth, and that's where the term for the movie comes from. It's a real-life expression that's used in popular speech. Urban cowboy describes a person that lives in the city that dresses in country and western style clothes. And in Texas, this is a way of life. The popular song that's sung by Johnny Lee is called Looking for Love. After this movie aired, they couldn't play this song enough on the radio, but it has really humble beginnings. It was written by two school teachers from the Mississippi Gulf Coast, one of them being from Gulfport, Mississippi, and the other being from Long Beach, which is right next to Gulfport. Patty was an art teacher there, and her friend Wanda would spend their moments away from the classroom learning and honing their craft of songwriting. They went on to progress enough to the point that they felt comfortable sharing some of their collaborations. They contacted an old high school friend named Bob Morrison. Bob had gone on to form his own Nashville-based publishing company, and the word was out that he was scouting fresh talent. The ladies contacted him and sent him a few of the tunes they had written, but the first group of songs that they sent just weren't very good. But he did see some potential there. He encouraged Patty and Wanda to keep working at it. They labored together at this process and also separately for a couple of weeks, coming up with a great deal of different ideas. One day, the two just out of the blue came up with the concept of Looking for Love. Patty kept thinking about the song and the idea about it one night after she was driving home from her evening classes at the University of Southern Mississippi. It was raining really hard, and the windshield wipers were beating out a rhythm as they tried to keep up with the pouring rain. It was during those moments that she began to really hear this song. She outlined the chorus in her car during that storm. She got in touch with Wanda immediately after arriving home, and the very next day, the rest of Looking for Love came together pretty quickly. Now, the popularity of Debra Winger's Mechanical Bull Ride was the highlight of this entire movie. Everybody at the water coolers talked about this performance. It was all entirely done to make Bud jealous, and that it did. One would never think that riding a mechanical bull could completely show her ex what he was missing. Her interaction with this mechanical beast is jaw-dropping. Who would have thought that this simple act could exhibit such sex appeal? This scene makes you, the audience, and Bud, her ex, wonder why he would possibly turn her down. Sissy gets back at Bud in the best possible way she can. She rides the heck out of that bull. Take a look back at this classic film from that time in the late 70s, early 80s. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.